Hello folks, and welcome back to my channel. It is time for another Try to Get Ready With Me, and today's is very fun because I'm shooting a very exciting video for YouTube, and so I'm getting ready to do my makeup and everything for that. And I am finally doing like fun makeup, and that is because today I'm shooting a video on corset piercings, and I've been wanting to shoot a video on corset piercings for a while now, but it was actually on my to-do list for like a month ago. But I had the wild idea that I should get a corset piercing done and then wear it in the video, and that would be very cool and fun, and that the internet would probably like that. And I don't know, I'm feeling froggy. It's been a while since I last suspended. It's been like 3 months, so like I got the itch, you know? So now I'm getting ready to do that. By the time this Try to Get Ready With Me gets posted, I will have probably already posted the corset piercing video, because knowing myself, I'm gonna be way too excited about it to wait to post it. So this is me getting ready for it. And speaking of, I had a pretty interesting topic for today's video, because I was having a conversation on a recent guest spot I was on, and I realized my goal as a professional piercer has always been to be very professional and very respectful and very educational and just, you know, an upstanding member of the community in all interactions. And I appear to have done such a good job of that online that a lot of people have no idea the Lynn that is under the surface. I was talking to a very long time client of mine who has since become like a client and a friend, and I was talking about the fact that I was getting ready to do this video when I got back from my guest spot, and I was gonna have my coworker do a corset piercing on me, and how excited I was and how cute it was gonna be, and that it had been so long since I'd had a corset piercing done. I think the last time I had a corset piercing myself was probably like 2017 or 18 for this like Valentine's Day costume contest emo night that I went to with my best friend Margot in Florida. We did cute little arm corsets, and we were tied together with red strings, very like Red String of Fate. It was very cute. I loved it. So it's been a minute. And in pulling up the pictures of that, because we were chatting about it, I pulled up a bunch of pictures of like baby Lynn getting up to shenanigans, like doing crazy suspension shows and doing funky play piercings and talking about like all of the mods that I wanted done when I was younger. And the way their jaw dropped, and they were like, I never knew this side of Lynn. Like, I thought you knew a lot about all of these things, like, professionally, because it was your job to know about them, and you teach and you educate about them, but I never knew that you were, like, into it like that. It was so wild for me to hear that, because, again, I guess I've just done a really good job being super professional and like super chill on the internet. So it's interesting to me, this disconnect between the Lynn that I am now at 30, who is a professional piercer and a content creator and an educator who like makes all this content and teaches stuff about this, and Lynn at like 18, 19, 20, who was getting huge corset piercings done for tattoo conventions and desperately wanted horn implants in my forehead, and low-key had really thought a lot about getting my scleras tattooed. Like, I knew how dangerous it was, but at like 18 and 19, oh, I thought it was the coolest thing. You know, I've gotten sketchy heavy mod work done in hotels, and just all sorts of stuff. You know, I've had a very adventurous life in the circles of body modification, I would say. But I have done such a good job of having like a distance professional take on it online, and in those spaces that a lot of folks, I guess, were under the impression that this is just a side of piercing that I understand clinically or professionally, but not necessarily perfect, but not necessarily personally. Basically, as my friend put it, they were like, I had no idea that you were like genuinely, like personally for yourself into the freaky weird side of piercing. So I guess this video is me wanting to talk about the fact that I am totally a little weird freak. Like, people so often ask me, like, oh, like, what got you into doing a piercer? What made you want to be a professional piercer? And the answer is always, like bodily affirmation and self-confidence and self-love. I talk about getting my first nostril piercing at, like, 13, 14, and, like, looking in the mirror and feeling like I really loved the body that I was in and, like, really loved my face. And I really do, like, mean it when I say all of those things. Oh, my God, girlfriend. I just got home from my guest spot like a couple days ago, and she's still not used to the fact that I'm home, so she got a lot to say. And when people ask me that, and like I answer that question, like, that's the truth. Like, that's what got me into doing piercings. Like, I genuinely really, really love that element of this career. But what I've realized that people don't ask me as often is, like, what got me into getting piercings. Like, not what inspired me to want to do piercings. What inspired me when I was like 13, 14, 15 on the internet wanting to get piercings. Like, what was that? And that was that I was a little weirdo. I was a little freak. From a very, very young age, I was that kid always in class, like as early as kindergarten, like putting safety pins through my fingers, like stapling myself with a stapler. I was always very interested in like exploring the boundaries of my body. I was constantly getting in trouble for like drawing on myself with markers and stuff like that. So I was always that kid. Also been really open on here about my past history with like self-harm. I think a lot of folks who got into some of the heavier sides of body modification and certain practices do have a history of like self-harming and exploring like the processing of emotions through our bodies in both healthy and unhealthy manners. And I was consuming from a very young age a lot of content surrounding that topic that was like questionable, you know? I was definitely very young watching like war movies and documentaries and like medical TV shows. Back when like daytime television would literally show like an entire surgery. I remember my grandmother coming downstairs and being like, what the fuck are you watching? And like turning off the TV because they were literally like rifling around in a person's abdominal cavity. And I was like 8 and I was like, this is chill, you know? But what really did it for me was Tumblr. Like once, actually, I think it was probably Gaia Online first, if I'm being honest. I found Gaia Online very young and definitely spent way too much time making like an evil vampire avatar with like blood and all of those accessories. And through there, I think, is how I found out about Tumblr. And then once I was on Tumblr, I quickly found a lot of body modification posts and accounts. I remember following AJ Goldman on Tumblr very, very early on. Shout out AJ, we love him. And through that, I found BME. And I was definitely very underage on BME, very underage, and seeing like the craziest heavy mod stuff getting posted on there. I was like 15 or something when I did a self-portrait for my art class where I illustrated myself with a ton of facial piercings, most of which I had now. I drew myself with like cheeks and a bridge piercing and all of this stuff. But I also illustrated myself with big subdermal horns, pointed ears, a split tongue, the subdermal implants on my chest, which I did end up getting subdermal implants in my chest and my tongue split. So a bunch of those did come true. and I used to illustrate myself with like tattooed scleras and like full face tattoos. Like I was 15, 16, like ready to commit to a life of being extremely, extremely heavily modified. And very, very interested in it. I was super interested in play piercings. I remember begging my mom and my piercer to let me do corset piercings for my senior prom. But I was 17 at the time. I graduated when I was 17. And my piercer at the time was like, I'm not doing a corset piercing on a minor, which is like so reasonable and so realistic. And I agree with her. But at 17, I was like, what do you mean I can't wear a corset piercing to senior prom? But I was into it, and at my core, I am still into it. I love the thought of exploring what is possible with our bodies and modifying our bodies in the way that see fit. And I love like blood and bleeding and the power of blood and the power of seeing and interacting with your own blood and the power of pain and painful experiences and how much we can learn from enduring pain. I wrote a blog post after the New Zealand SUSCon titled, I Worship at the Church of Pain. And I meant every word of that. Like I am beyond fascinated with exploring what pain tells us about our body and about our experiences and about what we are capable of and what we can handle. And I love piercings in all of their forms. I genuinely love the piercing that I do, the very professional, educated, like straight-laced, by the book piercing, and obviously like safe piercing and all of that stuff. But deep down in my core, like the root of who I am, is the Lynn that is so excited to go in the woods and like do a bunch of play piercings out in the wilderness, out in the rain. The me that is so stoked to be getting ready to do a corset piercing just to film a video in today. The me that is so excited to get like weird and experimental and freaky with it. And like if it heals, great. And if it doesn't, oh well, at least it was a cool experience. At least we tried some fun stuff. And who wants to explore the boundaries of my body and my physical existence through these practices. And like, do not get me wrong, when I say freak in this video, I say it with so much like love and pride in that title. Like, again, I remember being on BME way too young and looking at all of the heavy mod posts and all of the extreme work people were getting done. Oh my God, I was fascinated with like meatotomies and like all of the heavy modification you could do with that anatomy. I was so bummed that I did not have the anatomy to do cool, weird stuff to my penis. I was like, what the heck? I would have the coolest genitals in the world if I had a penis. Hindsight is 2020, but it's not a very cisgender thought to have. But I was really into it, and I remember seeing so many people on BME who I would say like self-identified as a freak with like pride in that term, who were like very proud to call themselves that and to be weird and different and in that way and embrace these things that we do that the modern population would consider freakish. And that was at the heart of my modification goals. Like I wanted to be a freak. I wanted to have, I wanted that. Of course, I got into the industry very early. I got into the industry right out of high school. So right at 18, technically before 18, but you know, there's legality issues there that we are going to gloss over. And I felt very quickly discouraged from doing a lot of those heavy modifications that I really wanted. And you may hear that and think like, Lynn, you were working in the industry. Like, what do you mean discouraged from getting more modifications? But there are very few people who will discourage you from getting heavy mods more than people in the industry, because they understand the long-term consequences. They understand what it's like to have these modifications and live with them, and they understand what an impact they're going to have on your life. So me being young and interested in them, a lot of my like coworkers and peers were like, don't rush into it, like take your time, this is really going to impact your life. Like, all things considered, I am glad in a lot of ways that I was talked out of making those decisions very young, because I do see the impact that that would have had on my life. And I mean, like, I've been denied like renting apartments and even entry to bars and restaurants over my cheek piercings. So imagine if I were more heavily modified. Like, it would just be very difficult. But a big part of why I never got those modifications was because my goal was to be a successful body piercer. And a number of my mentors and peers were like, if you do all of this stuff, you're gonna look too weird, you're gonna look scary, and people aren't gonna wanna get pierced by you. And so I was very much discouraged from getting this mod work done if I wanted to be as successful a piercer as possible. And I don't want to say that they're right, but I definitely have worked in areas where there are other piercers in the region who are very visibly modified, and I have had lots of clients come in and be like, oh my God, have you seen so-and-so who works at this shop? They're a freak. They look super scary. Like, I would never take my daughter or my child or my partner to get pierced by them. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer that those people were right. And it's a bummer that a bunch of the modifications that I once really dreamed of and really wanted could have such a negative impact on me literally having a career doing body modifications. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about that. That could be its own whole separate video, honestly. But that is why very young baby Lynn, who dreamed of having all of these like interesting and unique and more intense heavy modifications, never ended up getting a lot of them done. Now, I still did get a lot. I've got all my scarification. I've got the implants on my collarbones. I split my tongue. Like, I did still get a lot, but not everything that I would have gotten, you know, if you asked 15, 16-year-old me. There will always still be a part of me that is like, horns would be freaking cool. Horns would be freaking cool. I don't know that anything like that will ever happen. I do think one of these days I'm gonna just tattoo my face. I do think one of these days I'm just gonna be over it and just be like fuck it, full send. Like, I'm established enough in this industry. Like, I have my clientele base. I'm tatting my face. But we're still a ways away from that reality. But in my heart and soul, man, I am into it. I love it. I am here for it. But it is just so interesting to me that someone who I've known for so long and who I consider now a friend, not even just a client, didn't realize that about me and truly thought that I just had a vested curiosity about every element of body modification, and not that I personally was super into the weirder side of things. Even though I feel like I post a lot of like suspension and play piercings and like needle play and blood play stuff, and I guess I've just done a good job of posting and speaking about these things very clinically and professionally, which is, you know, like a good thing because I want to educate people about those subjects. But yes, at the heart of it, at the heart of my personal experience with piercings, not my professional experience with piercings, but my personal experience with piercings, I'm into it. I'm so into all the weird stuff and all of the freaky stuff and a lot of the potentially questionable stuff. And I want people to know that that is a vested interest of mine. It's not just a professional interest. It's not just part of the knowledge that I have as a professional piercer. It is also what I, as a person, am into and enjoy and encourage other people to enjoy. And yeah, let's get weird with it. So if you've ever wondered, if you've ever thought to yourself, does Lynn just know a lot about this? because piercing is their special interest? Or does Lynn know a lot about this because this is a personal interest of theirs? 95% of the time, if it's piercing related, it's because it's a personal interest of mine. And I'm just into piercing in all of its shapes and forms, comprehensively, across the board, as weird and as wonderful as you can get with it. And I honestly feel like that side of piercing kind of got distanced by the industry for a little while, like especially like late 2000s to like late 20, probably like up till 2020, honestly. Like we were, as an industry, we're so focused on doing like the gemstones and the gold and the fancy stuff that I feel like we kind of diminished the like weird freaky side of piercing, or made an effort to downplay it. And I kind of feel like it's coming back now. I'm literally doing makeup to get ready to film a video about corset piercings because so many people have been talking about them on TikTok. If that is not a sign that that freaky, weird, fun side of piercing is coming back, I don't know what to tell y'all. And it makes my heart really happy because that playful and irreverent and exploratory side of piercing is the stuff about piercing that I personally really love. And I just really love the idea of getting weird and wild and freaky with your body because you can, and exploring what your body is capable of. And I think that's like the coolest element of what we can do if it calls to you to do that. So this is me saying, for those who are unaware, that I am proudly a piercing freak, and I support and encourage everyone to get a little freaky with it if they are so inspired to do so. I think this is the makeup for today, and now I'm gonna go get ready to go downstairs and have my coworker do a fun little corset piercing on me, and then film my fun little video about corset piercings. Thanks for sitting down and chatting and letting me talk about this side of me that I feel like I usually have to keep private because I don't want it to influence my professionalism online. But I'm kind of tired of doing so, and I want to let people know that I do love like the weird counterculture, funky body play sides of piercing, and just make that really clear, and hopefully make people who also enjoy that feel like seen and heard and understood, and show that you can have a place as an educator and a professional in this industry doing all these things in a very professional and clinical manner, and still get a little weird behind the scenes after hours. All right, folks, have a great rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll sit down and chat again soon. Bye.